Esteemed speakers and participants, dear friends, I would like to express my gratitude to the Confederation of Trade Unions of the Slovak Republic for inviting me to speak in today's conference on the future of work in the 21st century. In particular, I would like to thank President Monika Uhlerová for this invitation. I am honored to address you all today via this message as the newly elected President of the European Economic and Social Committee. To set the scene for this event and drawing on my background as former President of the ESC's Workers' Group, I will focus my contribution on matters surrounding the European Pillar of Social Rights, working conditions and new forms of work, the EU Skills Agenda, gender equality and the inherent component of social dialogue, namely collective bargaining. These are all topics that are not only dear to the trade union movement, but that also lie at the core of the ESC's mandate, and I will gladly present you our perspective. We all take pride in Europe, being home to the most equal societies in the world, the highest standards in working conditions and broad social protection. Nonetheless, we often question whether we are doing enough, as many workers still experience precarious working conditions, social exclusion and inequalities. More must be done for a true social market economy. Therefore, to further deliver on the EU social market economy, we need to use the European Pillar of Social Rights as the beacon guiding us towards a strong social Europe that is fair, inclusive and full of opportunities for all. Delivering on the pillar must be a joint effort by EU institutions, national, regional and local authorities, social partners and civil society. The ESC, a strong supporter of the pillar, provided input to deliver on the rights and principles with concrete actions from the workers, employers and civil society organizations' perspectives. We have advocated and keep advocating for fairer working conditions, more equal opportunities and more adequate social protection. In these achievements, we stress the need for the proper involvement of social partners at all stages. In 2020 and 2021, the ESC worked on key topics related to the Pillar of Social Rights: minimum income across Europe, the Adequate Minimum Wage Directive, and the Action Plan on the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights. On these aspects, we called for clear benchmarks to measure the efficiency of these new policy instruments and do our best to mainstream a generous, rights-based approach to the benefit of all workers and employers. We are also planning a conference on the social dimension in the national recovery and resilience plans. During this conference, we will discuss more particularly on raising awareness to promote a lifelong gender equality culture in the workplace and to close the still visible gender pay gap in the EU. Another key aspect of the pillar that the ESC focuses on is the access to education, skills, training and lifelong learning. Indeed, adjusting to the green and digital transition is a key condition for the EU labour market to remain competitive. It will provide workers and companies the means to be fit for the twin transition. We simply cannot afford to leave anyone behind in this transition. In this context, the ESC welcomes and actively participates in the 2023 European Year of Skills. In March, we organized a conference on skills and talents as key drivers for personal fulfillment, economic growth and competitiveness. The ESC also works extensively on the upskilling and reskilling of workers, especially in the context of its labour market observatory. Last year, we published a transnational study on the work of the future, ensuring lifelong learning and training of employees, which concluded that a balance can be found with the support of social partners between the willingness of employees to strengthen their professional path and the company's needs for upskilled workers. The future of work also revolves around new forms of work and new work patterns. First, a lot of attention has been recently devoted to the precarious working conditions of platform workers. Within the ESC, we acknowledged that the platform economy opens up opportunities for both businesses and workers, but also raises serious concerns related to the working conditions. We therefore advocated for stronger information, consultation rights, and the universal right to collective bargaining for all platform workers, regardless of their status. Second, the COVID-19 pandemic and the development of telework has raised new questions. In this context, the EHSV stressed the need for appropriate national frameworks for teleworking, setting out the rules of play for companies and workers. This can only be achieved with a stronger involvement of the social partners. When speaking about future-proofing of labor markets, we also need to talk about labor shortages and surpluses across the EU, which were exacerbated by the deteriorating economic situation, the pandemic and the Russian war of aggression on Ukraine. At the EHSV, we firmly believe that at a time of great economic uncertainty, labor mobility could play a key role in the EU's economic recovery and growth prospects, but we need to safeguard that it is fair and effective. Again, it does not come as a surprise that this cannot be achieved in a vacuum, without the involvement of the social partners. It is no coincidence that I mentioned this topic during this very conference organized in Bratislava, a city hosting the European Labour Authority, the EU agency responsible for ensuring that rules on labour mobility are enforced in a fair and effective way, making it easier for workers and employers to reap the benefits of the EU internal market. The EHSV strongly supported ELA's creation. Last but not least, allow me to say a few words on social dialogue. Due to its role and composition, the EHSV is very well placed to facilitate social dialogue and to bring the knowledge and experience of social partners to the other EU institutions. Social dialogue is therefore a very important topic for us, and the EHSV regularly monitors the development, enforcement and quality of the social dialogue in many of its opinions. For instance, we currently work on 3 opinions dealing with the issues around social dialogue and collective bargaining that will be adopted in the coming weeks and months. We also strongly cooperate with the upcoming Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union to develop recommendations on these issues. Social dialogue at national and European level plays a key role in shaping economic, labor and social policies that promote the upward convergence of living and working conditions across member states. It can be a beneficial tool to drive economic and social resilience, competitiveness and sustainable and inclusive growth, and thus bring social peace by contributing to the stability of our societies. As an integral part of the European social model and as a source of European competitiveness, social dialogue needs to be meaningful at all levels and at all stages of the decision-making process. Member states should recognize its considerable added value and grant adequate competences and resources to social partners, including support to capacity building. Dear speakers, dear participants, social partners have a specific role to play in elaborating and implementing policies directly or indirectly affecting employment and labor markets now and in the future. Knowing more about the implications of artificial intelligence on the employment, working conditions and skills will allow us to prepare adequate responses to make our labor markets fairer, more resilient and socially inclusive. I am confident that your exchanges today will focus on the importance of fostering social cohesion in the EU, fair working conditions, adequate social protection and inclusion, and strengthened social dialogue, therefore contributing to the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights. Let me stress again that the strong social Europe will only be possible through effective dialogue with social partners and civil society. We cannot underestimate the potential of civil society, especially trade unions, to ensure the success of EU strategies to tackle the current challenges surrounding the future of work. I will finally conclude by reaffirming the strong commitment of the EHSV in listening to your voices. You can count on us and our members in your work to ensure building future-proof labour markets. Rest assured that the EHSV remains committed to work alongside its stakeholders and to lift up the voices of civil society organizations, your voices. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you fruitful discussions throughout this conference.